Hello there, I'm Kasturi Manikam. Our top story this hour, the President of Kazakhstan, Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, is touching down right now at Xian International Airport in Xian in northwest China. You are looking at live pictures there. His plane is just arriving. Now, he's starting his trip to China under the invitation of Chinese President Xi Jinping. He will be attending the China Central Asia Summit, which will be held tomorrow. You're watching live pictures there in Xian at the Xianyang International Airport, where President Tokayev's airplane has just touched down. Now, officials from the Chinese Foreign Ministry and the Embassy of Kazakhstan in China are at the airport to greet them. The upcoming summit between China and 5 Central Asian countries in Xian is expected to demonstrate high-level cooperation to the world while blazing a new path of good neighborly friendship and win-win cooperation. If you're just joining us and tuning into CGTN, the President of Kazakhstan is arriving in Xian, China, in northwest China. He's starting his trip to China under the invitation of Chinese President Xi Jinping. He will be attending the China Central Asia Summit, which will be held tomorrow. Now, in an exclusive interview with China Media Group, President Tokayev said that he personally has high expectations for the summit. He believes that China is playing an increasingly important role in Central Asia and believes that leaders of other Central Asian countries have similar views. Now let's bring in our reporter Dong Xue, who is standing by live for us at Xianyang International Airport in Xian. Dong Xue, you are at the airport. What can you tell us? We have just seen President of Kazakhstan's airplane just touching down. What can you tell us?
Yes, guys, I'm now at the Xianyang International Airport here in the historic city of Xian. As we speak, President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev of Kazakhstan has arrived in Xian for the inaugural China Central Asia Summit. Well, you can obviously get a sense of the anticipation all around me. The red carpet has been rolled out, and we've got lovely children at the welcoming ceremony, as well as a traditional dance performance to welcome his arrival. Well, today is also a very special day for President Tokayev because it's his 70th birthday, according to the presidential press service. Well, despite his busy schedule for his state visit here in China, as well as participation for the summit, there are still expectations about a special event could be held to make today even more memorable for him. Well, President Tokayev is no stranger to China. Well, he is actually nicknamed as a China hand, given his rich experience dealing with China, and now he's an honorary professor of the Shenzhen University in China. Well, this time arrived in Xi'an with him are included a delegation from Kazakhstan that includes the Minister from Agriculture, Transportation, and of course the Foreign Minister as well. Kazakhstan has had a close ties with China for a long time, supplying minerals, metals, and energy to its eastern neighbors, and transshipping goods between China and Europe. Well, Chinese President Xi Jinping had visited Kazakhstan last September in what was seen as his first trip abroad since the start of the coronavirus pandemic, where both sides had agreed to reinforce their commitment to multilateralism, as well as to expand cooperation under the Belt and Road Initiative, which was announced by President Xi in Kazakhstan in 2013. Well, it's already, the initiative is already delivered a raft of infrastructure projects to the largely underdeveloped regions, from railways, highways, and power stations, and of course natural gas pipelines. The BRI will obviously, top the agenda for the summit this time as well. And ahead of the summit, Chinese President Xi Jinping will hold bilateral meetings with all the 5 Central Asian leaders separately. Well, analysts say, multiple deals are expected to be signed right after, covering agriculture, new energy, e-commerce, high-tech, trade, and the economy. Well, the direct economic benefits from measures such as the new visa-free deals are still unclear, but they are an important symbol of Beijing's growing influence in the region, as well as the mutual trust between these countries. Gas.
Dongxue, thank you for that. And if you are just tuning in to CGTN, we are watching live pictures coming out of Xian in northwest China, where the president of Kazakhstan, Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, is just touching down. He's here in China at the invitation of Chinese President Xi Jinping. He will be attending the China Central Asia Summit, which will start tomorrow and go on for the next 2 days. Now, President Tokayev earlier said he personally has high expectations for the summit. He believes that China is playing an increasingly important role in Central Asia, and believes that leaders of other Central Asian countries have similar views. A welcoming ceremony is currently underway for the president of Kazakhstan, Kassym-Jomart Tokayev. Now let's. I have Ina Tangen, an independent political and economics affairs commentator, here with me in the studio. Ina, it's always good to have you with us. So we were seeing live pictures now of the president of Kazakhstan arriving in Xian in northwest China. Now, he's here at the invitation of Chinese President Xi Jinping, and he will be attending the China Central Asia Summit. This is the first in-person summit since China and the Central Asian countries established diplomatic ties 31 years ago. How significant is it?
Well, it's very significant, and they're all members of the SCO. They're going to be talking about a number of issues, everything from visa-free travel to more economic cooperation. But one of the key aspects, and one of the, when he refers to China's role, is this Belt and Road Initiative. That has been a game changer, especially for Kazakhstan. It's a landlocked country, it's huge area, lots of resources, energy, etc. A very advanced economy, one of the heavyweights of the Central Asian area. But there's a lot of, there's got to be a balancing act. And I think it was very important that Xi Jinping sat down with Vladimir Putin to make sure that this is not seen as an encroachment, that China is trying to create another sphere of influence for itself. Because on one hand you have the former Soviet republics obviously under pressure in the east by NATO. And it was important that this not be seen that way, because Russia will not be at this summit. It has its own kind of Central Asian grouping that it's there. But it's clear that China, by having closer cooperation and communication, China and Russia don't see each other as a threat. And this is very, very important, especially something like this, an event as historic as this.
At any moment now, the president of Kazakhstan will be stepping down the plane. How do you see Kassym-Jomart Tokayev's visit to China?
It's very important. I mean, he really, if you start looking at trade, it was up almost a third, 34%, more than a third in 2022 from the previous year. And obviously China is a huge customer for the energy that's produced there, both natural gas and oil. So at this juncture, there's a very close relationship. And as I said, the interconnectivity with the Belt and Road has added a new venture.
The president of Kazakhstan, Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, is just stepping down the plane. There you have live pictures coming out of Xian in northwest China. Tokayev is here at the invitation of Chinese President Xi Jinping. He's shaking hands with the officials. If you're just joining us, the President of Kazakhstan has just arrived, touched down in Xian, northwest China. He will be attending the China Central Asia Summit. The President of Kazakhstan is meeting officials from the Chinese Foreign Ministry, Shanxi Province, and the Embassy of Kazakhstan in China are also there to receive him. A welcoming ceremony is currently underway. There you have the President of Kazakhstan with the officials from the Chinese Foreign Ministry, Shanxi Province, and the Embassy of Kazakhstan in China. A welcoming ceremony is currently underway. The President of Kazakhstan just met Commerce Minister Meng Wanzhou. They're walking down the red carpet. A welcoming ceremony is currently underway for the President of Kazakhstan, Kassym-Jomart Tokayev. Tokayev is here under the invitation of Chinese President Xi Jinping. A very unique drum performance has been specially organized for the President of Kazakhstan. And there you're watching live pictures coming out of Xian. A drum performance and a dance performance is being held to welcome the President of Kazakhstan, Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, who has just arrived in Xian in northwest China. A very colorful, unique performance for the President. Mr. Tokayev has just met officials from the Chinese Foreign Ministry, Shanxi Province, and the Embassy of Kazakhstan in China, who are all there to welcome him. The President of Kazakhstan is just leaving. He just arrived at the Sanyang International Airport in Xian. He's here to attend the China Central Asia Summit at the invitation of Chinese President Xi Jinping. Commerce Minister Meng Wanzhou is at the airport. He just received the President of Kazakhstan, Kassym-Jomart Tokayev. A very special, unique drum dance performance was prepared. And it's as you see it, live pictures are there of the drum performance for the President of Kazakhstan. My colleague Wang Guan joins me now live from Xian. He earlier spoke with the President of Kazakhstan, Kassym-Jomart Tokayev. Wang Guan, it's always good to see you. You spoke to the President himself. What was your impression from your interview with the President?
Guys, good afternoon from Xian, the ancient Chinese capital. I just watched live pictures of President Tokayev's arrival and the welcoming ceremony, as you guys have done in the studio. To say it was a very warm reception was a big understatement. We saw the drums beating, the kids welcoming him. I think that says a lot about the current state of China-Kazakhstan relations. Well, as to the exclusive interview done by China Media Group in Astana with His Excellency President Tokayev of Kazakhstan, I would say it was a very interesting conversation. President Tokayev was one of the very, very few world leaders, current world leaders, who speak fluent Mandarin Chinese. So part of the interview was done in Mandarin Chinese. We talk about his favorite food in China. He says in Chinese that his favorite food include spicy tantan mian noodle and also Peking roast duck. He recalled his days in China. He spent 8 years, more than 8 years in China, first as a student at Beijing Language and Culture University, and then as a junior Soviet diplomat in Beijing, altogether 8 years. So he talked about his emotional bond with the Chinese people, with the Chinese culture, with the Chinese society. You do see a genuine feeling towards Chinese people, which is marked by warmth, a lot of genuine ingenuity over there. Now, talking about the interview, I want you to listen to what he said about this very important meeting we're covering, China-Central Asia Summit, the first of its kind.
Last January, there was a video summit between China and Central Asian leaders. And then in February, you, along with 4 other Central Asian leaders, attended the opening of Beijing Winter Olympics. And then there will be this China-Central Asia Summit in May. Is it your sense, too, that China and Central Asia are moving closer towards each other, not just economically, but also strategically? And in particular, what are your expectations for this China-Central Asia Summit, the first of its kind?
My expectations from the summit, which is going to take place in Xian, Central Asia and China are very high. China plays increasingly important role in our part of the world, in Central Asia, and it's quite natural. I think that all my colleagues in Central Asia would agree with me that we benefit from our relations with China, and we'll be doing our best in order to promote this kind of cooperation.
And then what would be your response to some commentaries that say that China and Central Asia are moving closer towards one another, and they're concerned about this growing closeness or intimacy in this geopolitical balance?
There should be no suspicions about that, because our intentions are quite open, sincere. The fact is that China, number 2 in terms of its economy in the world. China has become a juggernaut in terms of its economic development. So we should acknowledge the role of China, and we need to build very good relationship with your country.
And then, guys, I will tell you, it was a very interesting conversation whereby at the end of the interview, President Tokayev, the first thing he said was that, oh, sorry, there could be some imperfections in my Mandarin Chinese when I answer some of the questions in Chinese, because I've been quite busy over the past 2 years, haven't used Chinese as much as I would have liked to. This is his 5th language, the 4th foreign language that President Tokayev speaks. And actually, that was a very good conversation conducted in Chinese. Part of it was in Chinese. I think that says a lot about his character and personality. I saw a lot of discipline in him, a lot of humility in him. And of course, we talk about China-Kazakhstan relations, which have been described by both sides as eternal, comprehensive, strategic partners. That is a very unique phrase. The coining of this phrase, I learned, that was personally invested by the president of Kazakhstan himself. So we talk about this very unique relationship. Why is it called as such, and what is the potential of China-Kazakhstan relations going forward? Listen.
Let's talk about China-Kazakhstan relations. This relationship has been described by both sides as permanent, comprehensive, strategic partnership. This is very unique in China's foreign policy. Actually, I learned that you are personally invested in the coining of this term. Can you tell us the thinking behind it, and how would you position China in Kazakhstan's current foreign policy?
China plays a very important role in our foreign policy. In September 2019, I went to China to pay a state visit, and we had excellent talks with Chairman Xi Jinping, and we agreed to pursue mutually beneficial policy of bringing our peoples together. It means that we should enjoy strategic partnership, eternal friendship between both countries. I think that it is very much in the interests, in the long-standing interests of the Kazakh people, and I'm very much committed to this kind of policy. And of course, we have no doubts about the importance of having strategic partnership with our immediate neighbor, China.
But if you think about the word eternal, some would say this is the tall order, given the geopolitical realities. Are you confident that this relationship can be eternal?
Yes, because as I have already said and mentioned, we are both immediate neighbors. So it's our historic destiny. And my task as president of this country to make sure that this friendship will obtain a solid basis and will be mutually beneficial politically and, of course, economically.
Wang Guan, the president also touched upon the Taiwan question. What did he have to say on that?
Well, his remarks on Taiwan was very strong, was very principled, stronger than I thought it would be, because we've done interviews with quite a few world leaders. It's not uncommon for world leaders to reject calls for Taiwan independence, but President Tokayev really said a lot of things that's quite unexpected. He said he would support an eventual reunification of the Chinese mainland and the island of Taiwan. Let's listen to that too.
Talking about Taiwan, it is a hot button issue. Actually, you recently said that, actually you said it on many occasions, that it is very important to uphold territorial integrity for all countries. Recently, you rejected calls for Taiwan independence. Can you elaborate?
We believe that it's a question which should be absolutely clear to everybody in the world. Taiwan is a part of China. So the principle of the territorial integrity of all states has been fixed in the Charter of the United Nations, which must be respected. And this principle also has been put in the declaration and in the charter of the Shanghai Organization for Cooperation. So once again, for us, it's absolutely clear. Taiwan is a part of China, and we have no hesitations about that.
Would you support an eventual Chinese reunification?
Yes, of course. I think that eventual reunification will take place sooner or later. And there are Chinese who live in Taiwan. There are Chinese who live in China. So they must be together.
Well, you've heard it, Gas, and it's a very strong statement. Really, we're marking the first China-Central Asia summit, the first of its kind happening here. And when both sides talk about the fact that they're good neighbors, I mean, they mean it literally. China and Central Asia share a very, very long border that stretches 3,200 kilometers. What does that mean? Well, to help our friends in the Western Hemisphere understand this, the United States shares a border with Mexico that stretches 3,100 kilometers. So China and Central Asia, they are good neighbors. They have every reason, according to many analysts, to forge stronger relations in terms of strategy, in terms of security, and in terms of trade and economic ties. And when you think about it, it is happening. For example, China and Kazakhstan are expected to announce this visa-free travel for each other's citizens to each other's countries. And also, if you think about the China Railway Express, a key part of the Belt and Road Initiative that played a vitally important role during COVID, transporting medicines, masks, ventilators to those in need to save lives during COVID. It was called the Corridor of Life. And also, if you think about bilateral trade growth, which grew at an impressive 20-30% each year for the past 10-20 years. So there is a lot at stake when you talk about China, Central Asia engagement, and the expectations are that through this summit, this partnership this fraternity will only grow. Yes.
Wang Guan, thank you. It was a very interesting interview. Thank you for that. And if you're just joining us, the president of Kazakhstan, Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, has arrived in Xian in northwest China. He will be attending the China Central Asia Summit at the invitation of Chinese President Xi Jinping. Let's go for a short break. Stay with us.